with Ryan.
Today we are learning basketball with Johnathan Ramlakhan at Johnathan_MMA on Twitter, a Miami Heat contributor for 5 Reasons Sports, and a fellow writer for On SI, covering all of these NBA teams in this corner: the Magic, the Heat, the Pacers, the Bucks, Grizzlies. It's been fun covering these teams this season. We're gonna talk about a little Bam Adebayo, NBA history, second most points all time, insane to see it actually happen, breaking Kobe's record. Etching his name all time among the greats. He'll be remembered forever. Talks about forever from that. It's insane, and can't wait to dive into that. But first, how you doing today, Johnathan?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Like you said, it's been an exciting week for basketball. I mean, as a Heat fan, it's been nice to actually feel something, seeing Bam doing what he's done and ramping up here for the playoffs now. So it's that time.
Yeah, right. I mean, 83 points. What more is there to say? Like, he broke basketball. He broke the stats. We're gonna look into some of the clips and just talk about what it means for Bam and celebrate just an incredible performance. Which we can dive right into if you want. There's any takeaways right off the bat, just from what this meant to Heat fans in the middle of this season.
Yeah, I mean, as a Heat fan, just to have that type of performance, legendary, historic performance. I mean, in my opinion, the greatest scoring performance in history. Nobody's seen Wilt do it, right? So I'm giving that title to Bam Adebayo as a Heat fan. Come after me if you want to, but it was just a great, in a season or a couple of seasons where the Heat have had, or Heat fans have had a lot to go through. Losing Jimmy Butler, kind of being in limbo as far as championship caliber or out of the playoffs. They've had a better streak lately, which we'll get into a little bit more. But when you have a player just do something like that, regardless of the time, regardless of what the team is going through at that current given moment, it's something that will be remembered forever as a Heat fan. I still remember the 61-point game, I think it was against the Hornets, that LeBron had back when he was in the Heat. That was, eclipsed the D Wade scoring record for that time. So to see Bam Adebayo do what he did in the manner of which he did too, in an unstoppable force type of way, where many people complained about the free throws, but he was getting attacked a lot over and over again. And it wasn't a game where it was, really pushed towards really till the end. He had 40 in the first half, had 71 with about 90 minutes to go left, or 9 minutes to go left. So just overall, it was a fun performance to watch. And as a fan of Bam Adebayo being my current favorite player in the NBA as a Heat fan, it was just vindicating to see him do what he did there.
Right. I mean, we're talking about one of the most versatile players in the league, just popping off all at once, like all his skills all at once. It seems against maybe a little more vulnerable defense. Obviously, not having Anthony Davis down there, relying on Anthony or Alex R. And I mean, Bam was just left open and did his thing. What's crazy about some of the talk, which we don't have to spend much time on, like it's like he literally had an ethical like 50, 60, 70 point game, but people just gotta find a way to criticize. And obviously, like, this is a problem that doesn't exist. This is just national media making up storylines to me, just for the heck of it, for the clicks, for the views, just to criticize, or combination of Kobe stands and the media just kind of combining powers to kind of downplay an all-time great basketball performance. Like 25 of his first 29 points on 9 of 11 shots from the field. And they're playing now. It's like, he's flying around, dunking, hitting threes, attacking closeouts. There's one that's really nice to end it at the end of the first quarter. He walks into a deep pull-up 30-foot three for a 30-point first quarter. Like it's insane. Like he's doing it from catch and shoot threes. He's doing it as a finisher. As the game goes on, he hits like, driving finger rolls left and right, showing off ball skills to attack closeouts and body control to, stop on a dime, throw a little tweed, has the spin move in there that he'll get to. But like you're seeing some of the clips now, like, he's just driving, attacking, and no one's stopping him. And at a certain point, like, he's getting all these free throws because they can't stop him from getting layups, so they're fouling him. like that's how defense works when someone like George Mikan plays, or Wilt Chamberlain plays, or apparently when Bam Adebayo plays. And now that he's got the 3 ball, when you're feeling it, there it is. That's the one I wanted to see. Just like 30 points in 1 quarter with a walking into a 30-foot pull-up 3 as a center. Like, that's just stands out about his versatility there. And he just keeps it going the whole game. Like, the announcer, he calls him a runaway Bam in a pick and pop where like he gets doubled, he kicks it out. Whoever it was drives and throws a no look pass over his head, and Bam just like strolls right into an open lane. Insane like combination of like how many guys can do this right here. This is one of the plays that came to mind where it's like you're gonna call this unethical hoops, like attacks to close out with a pump fake, a drive, the little tween spin finger roll. Like, come on, that's insane. He's the center. Like he is 6'9", but like that's to his versatility, right? Like he's a strong, versatile center at 6'9" that can guard any position. So, I'm rambling now. What's funny? One last thing is I actually missed the game live. I opened my phone in the middle of the night or early morning and must have seen like an outdated version of what had happened. Like all I saw in the first tweet was like, Bam Adebayo 62 points. It was like, whoa, Bam just tied Carmelo and T-Mac career highs 62. And then I keep reading. He did it after 3 quarters. I'm like, what? How did that happen? Bam Adebayo out of nowhere. But it's just awesome to see him explode. Like throwing down tomahawk jams, like breakaway dunks. Like at a certain point, they're just killing the Wizards, getting steals and getting open dunks. Like he said it himself after the game. Don't be mad at him for attacking one single coverage and dunking home open dunks like this. Like blame the defense and the coach. Like make somebody else beat you once he hits 30 or 50 or 70 or something. Or he said you waited a little too long once he hit 70. So congrats to Bam. Nothing like every other team wishes they had a star that could score as ethically as Bam did and as unethically as he did at the end, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. Like, it's just efficient scoring, and he wasn't the one doing anything unethical about it. Like he's and it's such a silly word to begin with when it comes to describing basketball. But the gamesmanship at the end was a game of will Bam's break Kobe's record. Like that was the game within the game. Like it was no longer about, like who's going to win this game and like how are we going to play this game. Like it was, they're going to send double and triple teams to Bam and he's still going to try to score. Can you stop him from scoring? And they couldn't. They had to resort to fouling. Like that's, then that's not Bam's fault. That's him being so unstoppable that all they can do is foul. And he ends up with, let me look it back up while we're watching the rest of these stats. I got rid of the box score as we were watching it, but watching some of the plays here, like what really just stands out to you about Bam's game that like how do you think he was able to pop off like this?
I think that it's one word. I think it's confidence, right? I think it's just the confidence to go out there and do that. You have no Tyler Hero, you have no Norm Powell. You have to be the guy that goes there and does that. And I don't think maybe like he maybe mentioned like until the halftime or when you get 60 and you get up to that number that you're chasing that 81 potentially. But I mean, the man had 30 plus in the first quarter. I mean, we're lucky he didn't have 120 in the whole game, right? He was giving everybody buckets overall. So I mean, he was doing it. It almost looked like he was at a Rico Hines summer run with how he was playing and almost the competition he was playing against, right? He was playing against competition where it seems like he just was levels above them and they had nothing they could do. Essentially it's, a civilian versus an NBA player is what it looks like. And that's kind of what we saw in this case. And to your point, I mean, it wasn't until late in the game where he was 70 plus points and it was 8 or 9 minutes until the Wizards then started to make a defensive adjustment. So if you're the Washington Wizards or anybody, going against what this performance was, this is on the Wizards for their lack of defensive game plan coming into the game, allowing him to have 30 in the first half, 44, something like that in the first half, whatever it may be, and then wait that long to try to get the ball out of his hands, right? If you're trying to win this game overall, you would try to send in front Bam Adebayo, try to have as much defense as you can and make anybody else beat you. But it was way too late, far too deep into the game to make that count at that point. So it was almost two ways, right? It was the Heat trying to get Bam 81, and the Wizards specifically not trying to win the game, specifically trying not to let him get 81 as well too. So I mean, you can look at that as the unethical part of it as well, as they were not letting him, do anything. They were
Right.
trying to win the game. They were just not trying to let this guy beat them essentially more than they already were. So yeah, definitely, like you said, fun. A lot of people are going to complain, but we're not going to remember those people complaining. We're going to remember that 83 points.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when it's all said and done, that 83 points lives forever, and the quotes calling it whatever will not be remembered. And people will kind of have to talk about it forever. And how about he even gave it a shout after the game. He brought out Asia Wilson after the game to the post game press conference and said she gave him a hard time about scoring his 10,000th point without her in attendance. And so, with her getting to see him play for the first time, he drops 83 points, for his girl. So that's pretty crazy memory for
That's
them
love.
and moment for them. On top of all the idea that literally the two active leaders now in highest point totals in a game, are in a relationship. So congrats to them doing their thing and celebrated Bam, and it's just a cool moment for him. Obviously, like it stinks how many people want to like take away from this all-time great moment in basketball history. Like that's all you can really describe it. I did want to look up the stats here. 13 of 21 on 2-pointers, 7 of 22 on threes, and 36 of 43 on free throws. So, there were quite a few free throws. And Bam also addressed that in the post game. He said himself that, he's not even averaging 10 or 20 a game. It's not like he gets those calls normally. Like it happened tonight because he was getting fouled like a lot hard by people that couldn't stop him. Credit to the Wizards who, um, actually, I got to see them play the Magic a few games later. The Magic and Heat both have played the Wizards, this week. And funny enough, now they play each other on Saturday after all this, to culminate in, the Sunshine State rivalry. As I'm trying to make it a thing. I think I don't know if that's what they call it, but I like that name. I'm trying to make that a thing. We'll see if, we can make it, just turn it into existence. We got to hype this rivalry up to its potential, because it's always normally, as my buddy likes to give me a hard time about, as I wrote once, like it's like two ships passing in the nights. Sometime these teams where there's always one of them's always on top, one of them's always rebuilding. It's just more fun when both these teams are very competitive, giving each other battles. Not like the same average performance on both ends like some of the 2010s matchups were, but more like intense, like the last few years have really been. So it's always a cool matchup to see. Magic and Heat go up. Magic are up 4-0 on the entire season against the Heat this year. First game of the season was pretty, let's say, random, like every first game of the year, like a pretty random occurrence of many things, I think, compared to some of the others that might be a little more predictive, in terms of that. But I mentioned credit to the Wizards. They came out and gave the Magic a good fight last night. Like they did not roll over. They didn't play Trey much in the second half. It was Vucevic, but not Nikola Vucevic. It was Tristan Vucevic lighting up Orlando and running things randomly for the second half. And they willed a comeback, forced overtime. Magic escaped Tristan da Silva. We'll get to, but huge moment in the end there. A big block against Bilal Coulibaly to kind of seal it. Making huge plays. He had 26 points, 4 steals, 3 threes, 2 blocks himself. He's been on a roll. We'll talk about him in a minute, but any parting thoughts on kind of like what this moment means in, let's say, bigger picture basketball history? Like, how should fans remember this moment for Bam Adebayo?
I think he should be remembered as just a player that has always, worked hard. And this is maybe going as maybe more of a deeper basketball fan, but just a player that has always buckled down, has always done the work, has always done the stuff that hasn't showed up on the stat sheet. He finally got something to show up on the stat sheet. He does so many things that we don't get to see on listed out there for everybody to see. So I think maybe as a fan, maybe not a casual, but for someone that knows the game and knows who Bam Adebayo and what he does on the court, I think it's just awesome for him to get the moment where just the one time, whether it's never again, it gives, I mean, regardless, probably not going to do anything like that ever again. But just to have that moment for himself and all the work he's been able to do and sticking through with this team currently, I think it's just, really a great moment for him. And as a fan, I think this is something that we need to, instead of hate on, I think this is something we need to encourage and enjoy, right? We need to celebrate players when they do have that success. Like you said, I believe a lot of people, even some of the people as on the Lakers broadcast were, talking bad about it when Luka subbed out. First off, Luka doesn't have the cardio to play as much as Bam Adebayo, but you have a player that's obviously getting, triple team, double team, getting the whole team sent at him when he was still able to get those points there at the end. So insane moment in NBA history. Like I said, in my opinion, I've never seen Wilt do the 100. There's no proof of it. Bam Adebayo, highest scoring in NBA history. You are muted, my man.
We got it. Well, you heard it here first. Bam Adebayo, the official scoring leader of the NBA in a single game, because that's technically the only one we've seen on tape. That you make a point. You make a point there. Shout out Bam though, man. I'm really excited for him. Really happy for him for all the things you just said. It's like he has been one of the most versatile players and basketball prospects now developed into a full blown star in the game for a long time. Like his game is like before his time, right on time. Like he's a modern playmaker, big big man that can, incredible handoff game as a playmaker, but also has that mid-range pull-up and has shown the development as a three-point shooter and finisher at the rim. Like he just does it all. He's one of the best defenders in the game, anchoring this defense, like you said, doing the little things for Miami for years now, and doesn't always get the credit, but they're very competitive because they have him as a defensive linchpin and handoff assassin, mid-range, do it all, like very versatile kind of guy. And it just all came together in one night in a good matchup. And you know I don't think he should be feel bad about anything, obviously. Like there's nothing, like, to me the whole storyline like doesn't really even make sense other than just how much hate gets clicks nowadays, and that's the only reason people are spending this much time talking about it in a negative way, because he's he did it in an incredible way. And there's obviously, as he said himself, like, if Kobe was out here trying to score points, he's not pulling it early out of respect to someone else. Like, he's trying to break the record. That's what records are there for. That's what players dream about doing, is breaking records and being remembered forever for mastering their craft. And Bam Adebayo is so versatile as a big man. He was able to score 83 points because partly of his versatility, where he gets 2 blocks, 2 steals, and he does a lot of his damage as a play finisher. He's not necessarily creating all of those looks either, just bringing the ball up. Like, he's able to do that because he can hit the open three like he did in the first quarter, hit multiple catch and shoot threes that pop him up to 30 points. Then he can start pump faking and driving and getting those finger rolls into wide open lanes. Then he can run the pick and pop after getting doubled on the ball and get open for the pump fake, and then the breakaway runaway bam, as he called it, pick and pop slam down the paint. And then he starts drawing doubles and drawing more fouls on the ball because of all those points that he scored a lot of off the ball. But his versatility, he's also hitting that pull up three to end the first quarter. He's also showing the on the dribble skills after pump faking the three and attacking the closeout with the drive and the spin moves and the handles. Like that versatility and that all around development from where he was with the tools to now just having all enough skills to actually do this is what's incredible. And it's still what, like a 50 or a mid 40 point game without the free throws. Like, there's quite a few points there. Quite a few points there. So, in my opinion, he had a great game at the free throw line and an all time game away from the free throw line, and they both came in the same game, and that's is why you end up with 83 points. And just one of those things that maybe is a sign of the times. People are saying, like, because of the era, anyone that takes this many shots, hey, there's a lot of people taking, I don't know, 20 or 30 or 40 shots in games. They're not scoring this many points. Like, it's not something I think that is going to be broken anytime soon, or especially necessarily just from a self creator. But if someone's feeling it one night, this is the era that we live in, where once you hit 60 or 70, I mean, why wouldn't you go for it? So
And just to add on that
shout out to
point,
Bam.
yeah, and just to add on that point, just a little second here. James Harden was doing and foul baiting for whole seasons, shooting 20, 30 free throws, getting those really high numbers consistently, game by game. One MVP, I believe, or close to it with a couple of those at the time. That was seasons of unethical hoops. I mean, even SGA, I mean, he's a talented player without a doubt. A lot of his free throws aren't the most ethical, So, I mean, you got to keep standards if you're going to compare with those
And
side
the
of things.
irony of like, Kobe fans talking about like free throw baiting. Like, did you ever watch Kobe play? Like, he's an all-time scorer, but that was a big part of it. Like, his pump fake, getting the defender in the air and getting the two free throws was half the game there. I mean, it's smart basketball. Also, like, we can call it unethical, but like, it's how these guys are scoring the most efficient shot in basketball. So, until you change the rules, it's not going to look like just trading mini pull-ups like some fans might want. But let's shift a little bit to where they go from here. So the Heat and the Magic are both on these incredible streaks right now. It's like basically the best time of the season for both of these teams is what it feels like. I mean, the Heat coming off this incredible, all-time performance with Bam. They're on a 7-game winning streak. The Magic just scrape out of an overtime win against the Wizards. They're on a 6-game winning streak now, and the Magic have crept up to the 5 seed at 37 and 28. The Heat are right below at the 6 seed, 38 and 29. They're tied in the games back column, so the Magic have the tiebreaker because they're 4-0 in the head-to-head series. So this win probably won't obviously change that series outcome, but every win matters. I guess even before the tiebreakers set in as well. So every win counts in this seeding process, especially to stay out of the play-in range. Both of them right now are ahead of that, but the Raptors are 1 game back. The Hawks and Sixers just 2.5 games back. The Hornets slowed up a bit, but they're 4 games back. This can still go a few ways. However, the Magic and the Heat only 2.5 games back of the 4 seed Cavs and 4 games back of the 3 seed Knicks. So there is some ways both teams could kind of move up and down between the 4 seed and the 10 seed. Kind of hard to see the Bucks really coming back at this point. 6 games behind the 10 seed Hornets. And the Pistons and Celtics have built a pretty sizable lead, but the Knicks aren't too far behind them. But that's a quick layout of the standings as of today, Friday, March 13th. First things first is any reason you think let's start with the Heat side of things. Obviously Bam's big performance, but any reason you think that this win streak has kind of came out of nowhere? Obviously the huge offense change in the beginning of the year when the Miami's screenless offense was running away with things in offensive rating. That was a big part of the early success. Are they getting back to that, or is there anything else you kind of credit for this Heat winning streak heading into this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it was mentioned, this is an original thought. I mean, Dwayne Wade talking about the Heat, right? He was, starting to ask about a little bit of the accountability from the team and who they are and what their identity is. And I think with, the team as a whole, especially with the team that has as much pride as the Miami Heat, you don't want to, have your star franchise best player in history calling you out when your season is kind of floundering, right? So I mean, you add that, you add Bam Adebayo, kind of just having the confidence to take more shots. I mean, 22 3-point shots. Obviously, you're chasing a record towards the end of some of that, but even 15, 12. That's not a game we've seen from Bam Adebayo very frequently by any means. So I love the fact that he's willing to take the shots, almost like for the Magic at the beginning of the season, Desmond Bane wasn't taking the shots, and we wanted him to. So, with the Miami Heat and you not having Tyler Hero or, Norman Powell, just for the moment being previous to the game, I think that's, part of the reason is Dwayne Wade kind of calling them out. And, I think when you come closer to the end of the season with a team like the Miami Heat, it's almost unfortunate, but they're very used to being in this position. They're used to being, at least over the last couple of years, in that play-in at the bottom of the East. They're roughly trying to make it in, and they kind of maybe, whether it's subconsciously or not, know when to kick it into gear. So I think that's a combination of those two things: is knowing what time of season it is. You have the greatest coach in the league right now. You have enough pieces on the table to get enough wins with who you're going against. And although I don't know if it turns into a deep playoff run, this Heat team knows how to make it to the playoffs at least.
Yeah, I mean they are holding down the play-in for the ever since they broke it out. The Magic have been there a few times. The Hornets, I think it's been like the same three or four teams a few times now around this range. But everyone trying to break free. Um, you know, Obviously, Davion Mitchell seems like to really be having a huge impact on this season. Can you touch on what that impact has been? Like, as one of the maybe less credited, unheralded, non-star guys that's possibly as impactful as anyone not named Bam. I mean, between his defense and point guard playmaking for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that we didn't expect was the playmaking aspect of his game. Like we knew
Hmm.
he had it maybe somewhere in there, but the defense is what we wanted out of Davion Mitchell coming into the season. But he's really been able to do a lot more. I mean, without a true playmaking point guard, I mean, obviously the situation with Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero being here or there, Drew Smith, not that guy potentially as far as being the elite playmaker, although he did have a couple assists the other day. The Miami Heat play positionless basketball, so typically they don't ask too much playmaking out of one specific position. But I think for Davion Mitchell, he's had really good chemistry because, on top of the offensive chemistry, defensively, Bam knows when you have Davion Mitchell at the point of attack of defense, he can kind of shift back a little bit. He doesn't have to help as much. He knows he can just kind of maybe hedge that screen or do whatever he has to play a little bit more drop instead of having to switch everything. So, I think just having that natural chemistry on the defensive side of things, when, typically for the Heat, they've struggled over the last couple of years at, especially the point of attack. That chemistry mixed with, the offensive playmaking that he's been bringing, has definitely sparked the team. I've been loving his finishing around the rim. I feel like it's underrated with how well he's been finishing around the rim lately as well too. So, yeah, I definitely think he's a huge factor in that. As well, and I think the some of the shooting as well too. I feel like earlier in the season we've had struggles with some of the younger shooters. Obviously, Jakučionis. You had Fontecchio really not finding his groove just yet. A couple of guys not really knowing exactly where their role were in this team. But I mean, as we've kind of gotten towards the end of the season or closer towards the end, you've had those shooters feel more comfortable in the positions they were in. Right before, that guy was Duncan Robinson. Right now he's at the top of the East over with the Detroit Pistons. So we've had a couple of holes to fill up with that, and I think now that groove is starting to come where Bam can spray out to those shooters with more confidence as those shooters have the ability to make those shots.
Yeah, and there's looking at the rotation. It seems to change, by the night sometimes, maybe by the matchup. What does a guy like Pelle Larson bring to this team that fans might not know about? Because he seems to pop up in the box score quite a bit with some heavy minutes for this team, and might not be the first player that comes to mind when you're thinking of like who's starting, between him and any other role players as well that maybe aren't getting enough shine, like maybe Myron Gardner throwing down like big time slams. Obviously, the rookie Kasparas Jakučionis is doing his thing as a point guard. He's really coming into his own, and Drew Smith's impact, Ware's potential. We can hit on all that a little bit. You mentioned Fontecchio a little bit, what he brings, but we're starting with Pelle a little bit. What does he bring that fans might not be as aware of?
I think maybe not as aware of would be what he does and what he's been doing on the defensive side of the ball. I feel like, for his archetype of player, a rangy, maybe cutter slash type shooter type of player, you don't expect him to have the defensive prowess that he does. And he brings, especially with the young body that he has, he brings a lot more than you would expect. Typically as NBA players, especially in today's NBA where they get drafted pretty young, they take a couple years for them to, fill out that adult body. But for him, he was able to kind of grow into it pretty quickly. Obviously, was drafted a little bit later at his age, 24, I believe he was when he was drafted, or 23 was when he was drafted. But yeah, as far as what he brings, the offensive versatility, right? Like you talked about a little bit with Bam Adebayo a little bit earlier. I think that's one thing that showed out, especially in the last game. What was it, 28 points? I believe when he had the last games against, Milwaukee. Impressive shooting. He was able to do it for multiple ranges. A couple finishing with the rim. He was able to get, actually quite a few bank shots as well too off of the glass. So I think that was one thing that we were, just the finish and the touch around the rim, in addition to his diversity on the offensive skill set. I think he's a stud. I want to see him continue to develop before we, make the same mistake as we did at Tyler Hero or some of the other guys where we kind of paid them a little too soon. But I'm loving what I see from him so far, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, is it just another example of the Heat culture and Spo just kind of like finding talent on the edges and finding guys that fit their system and, just another Heat guy kind of thing with all, it seems like half this rotation is, guys they find that fit what they do. And even back to Davion, like he bounced around a little bit, but like talk about a Heat culture guy, and it just fits with like, we want toughness, staying in shape and like playing team first basketball. And he showed that at Baylor, and he was brought that plus defense as a rookie. So cool to see him land the right role, and sometimes it takes a few spots to find that match.
Absolutely. And I think, with him, he was, like you said, sometimes when you're on different teams that don't bring that defensive intensity, it's hard for you to want to compete on that side of the ball as much if you're the only guy doing that, right? Not a lot of teams have
Yeah.
that, quote unquote culture on the defensive side of the ball where they take pride on that side of things too. So yeah, I mean, from him, like you said, great one. Jakučionis, another guy as well. I mean, I think he can, continue to add on to, that 3-point threat that this team sorely kind of needs. I mean, I love Norm Powell. I love Tyler Hero, but I'm not sure, as far as long term, where that shooting is going to continue to develop and come from as well too. So, yeah, and I mean with Tyler Hero, I mean he had a solid game against the Pistons, when we got the win against there, and then I think the last two games he didn't play essentially, right? So, that's kind of been my biggest issue I think with this Heat team is been the lack of availability for one of the most or one of the highest paid players on the team. But outside of that, I mean, like you said, the young guys, Jakučionis, even, bringing in Fontecchio, right? I mean, I think, his ability just to light it up when need be is something that this team also needed as well, too. So, yeah, a lot of these young guys, very fun to watch. Kel'el Ware, maybe deserves some more minutes than he also gets at times, but he's another player that I feel like can continue to develop and potentially could be, a really good piece next to Bam as he's continuing to grow.
Yeah, do you think that's just because of where he's at in his development timeline? Like there are some like, inconsistencies or something? Because he obviously, will have these flashes of like, oh, he could be the next dynamic kind of unicorny star for this team, and he can do it all as a weapon, but maybe, maybe there's needs to be more development in decision making or showing up on both ends consistently. You think it's, just kind of Spo playing the development stuff while trying to compete?
Yeah, I think it's the latter of it. I think it's him trying to still be competitive whilst developing some of these young guys. And that's why, as you've mentioned, we've seen so many different lineups from this Heat team, so many, DNP coaches' decision from guys that had solid games before, right? Because, I mean, even looking at his last 5 games, I mean, he's, averaging double figures, plus minus is, in the double figures as well, too. And he's, every time he's out there, he's bringing it. But there's also a guy previously, Hassan Whiteside would always put up great numbers, but, wasn't always there, when it comes to every single play. So, I'm not saying that with Kel'el Ware by any means, but I think I can understand where Coach Spo is coming from. As a Ware fan, I want to see him play more. just as a fan, because he's like you said, a unicorn. He's exciting to see. He brings excitement defensively and offensively, and he takes a little bit of load off of Bam's shoulders, in my opinion, as well. Bam doesn't have to be guarding the rim and playing, the pick and roll. He can actually, be that supporting help guy around the rim and do everything else potentially, as well as, not having to grab every single board with the team being as undersized outside of him as well. So, yeah, I definitely think, like you mentioned, the development side of things, he's been tempering with that, but I do see a potential where Kel'el Ware and Bam Adebayo could be anchoring this team moving forward.
Yeah, especially like you said with like just Davion. If Davion's the long term plan at point of attack defense and Bam Adebayo behind him, they have that trust. Kind of you have a point of attack and a defensive anchor down low, like pretty solid defense to build out of. Like could be already top 15 just from those two, and then you get Kel'el Ware in there with dynamic rim protection, and there's something there long term. So the skill set is obvious for Kel'el. I think like he's shown it on plenty of occasions. So hope he can kind of find that consistency that both sides are looking for, and it's tough on his side too because he's not in a situation where he's probably allowed to make mistakes, and that's tough to develop through. Where not like out of any reason other than the team's trying to compete, and you normally need more playing time to be in not necessarily a losing situation, but in a situation where it's okay if you make a few mistakes and it doesn't cost the team because you're developing and rebuilding. But young guys on good teams, it's tough to find that balance. I mean, the G League can be helpful for that, but like he's just so good, like he would dominate the G League probably. I think so. Probably too good for that generally, but it is a place for playing time. But I think he'll be like, if the best version of this team just has to involve his dynamic versatility and skill set, that jumper, the instincts, like you would think, and at some point, maybe not this year, but at some point going forward. But yeah, and definitely like Kasparas as well. Like he's just a solid point guard that can get to the rim and has that decelerating footwork. And I told Heat fans they kind of got their new Dragic to make a little comp to Goran. Like but just another fun point guard. But they do have some similar kind of play styles. Just in their ability to get downhill, that pull up three, the pick and rolls. Generally feisty defense, like good energy on the defensive end. So, I like the fit and the value when they got him. So, he's rolling into a pretty good role there as well. So that brings me to the matchup. Let me pull up the stats for these two teams. Since these win streaks began for the Magic and Heat, we're looking at since the Heat 7-game winning streak began, the Magic are 6-1 in that stretch. The Heat have the 4th best point differential in the league. The Magic have the 6th best point differential in the league. The Heat are 4th in offense and 4th in defense in that stretch. The Magic are 8th in offense and 3rd in defense in that stretch. Both of them are basically top 10 in every 4-factor category except for rebounding in one stat, and Orlando forcing turnovers in another. But generally all top 10 4-factors in these stretches. Obviously the huge game by Bam. Paolo and Bane have had some big games. De Silva's putting out big games. We'll switch over to the Magic side in a second, but these two win streaks, these two Southeast Division rivals, in-state rivals, clashing, and the Magic looking for a 5-0 record on the season over Miami, entering this playoffs where they hope to maybe secure home court, continue to do that by winning this game and more the rest of the way. Just on the game itself, Saturday, in a preview sense, is there any keys to the game that kind of stand out to you? From it looks like we'll have Bane, Suggs, Paolo, and De Silva and Wendell healthy on the Magic side, and at least Bam Adebayo on the Heat side. You were saying maybe the other stars might be hurt, but so I'm not totally sure if that's still the case by Saturday. But if it is, anything stand out to you about this matchup that you think will maybe swing the game or be an important factor?
Yeah, don't let Bam Adebayo have 83 points. I think that's number one
Starter.
first and foremost, right? You
Key
start off
number
with that.
one.
Probably
Underline
that's
that
the
one
formula for success.
on the whiteboard. Underline it.
But
Yeah.
I think outside of that, for the Orlando Magic, I think they want to do it as a team, right? I think for the Miami Heat, when you have the choke points of scoring that they do, from a couple individual players, I think the Orlando Magic with the health that they have, even missing Franz right now, still have a little bit deeper of a team with what they can score with at top. You have Paolo Banchero, you have Desmond Bane, which I mean, even just outside of that 83-point game, those are two way more dynamic scorers than Bam Adebayo. Coming from a Heat fan, so they should be able to do that. And I think the main thing was the discipline defensively. I noticed in a couple of the games for the Heat, they have been getting to the free throw line. Even like you said, Larson was able to do it. I even saw, I think it was Jaquez Jr. was able to get to the line a few times as well too. So you're having a couple of guys that are getting to the line. I think for the Magic, and this is something we saw earlier in the season, discipline on the fouls and discipline and not turning over the ball is going to be really the main key for the Orlando Magic. If they have a game where it's 15 or more turnovers, the Heat are going to be able to play in transition, which is one of their strengths, especially with this iteration of the Miami Heat. And it's going to be a lot harder of a game for the Magic to win. But the Magic have a formula, right? They're 4-0 against the Miami Heat. They have success in what they've been doing so far. So honestly, they just got to continue what they've been doing.
Yeah, and it's been close. There was one game that came down to Bam Adebayo missing a 3-point shot over an outstretched arm of Wendell Carter that could have won the game for Miami. And that was a back and forth one. But the first one, the Magic got their number a little bit. If I recall rightly, they dominated on the boards. I do think both of these teams, like you said about the Heat, like thrive playing fast off turnovers, especially, and that has been key in these matchups. Paolo's playmaking has been big. The defense of Anthony Black and Jalen Suggs in the past was big. AB's probably not out there tonight. Um, so I think on Orlando's side, like everything is humming as well as it has all season. The offense is finding a groove between just running offense through its stars, Paolo, Bane, Suggs, and now De Silva as the fourth available kind of ball handler option, secondary creator. But to highlight De Silva, man, he's been unreal. His last few games, he had a perfect game the other day. I'm looking at upside down. He had a perfect game. Well, I thought he had a perfect game. It was perfect to me.
Pretty
But
close.
who am I looking?
10
Yeah.
of 18, 3 of 6 from deep, 3 of 3. I mean, it's 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks. I mean, he filled up the stat board against the Wizards, so he was doing it all. And I think, we've kind of noticed that a little bit from Tristan da Silva. When they had Paolo out earlier in the season, he kind of came in and filled that gap. And, relatively now when Franz is out, he's kind of able to fill that gap as well, too. So it almost like that part of the season, last year, first off, when he was forced to be in that position, and then currently this year with earlier leading up to now, it's kind of led him to that point. So I mean, I think for Tristan da Silva, this is exactly what you want. If you're a Orlando Magic fan, is him to come off a bench, obviously highly touted draft pick. Coming off as or being drafted as the shooter that this team needed into coming in, and for him to fill that role and even more, kind of give him a little bit more than just a pure shooter than he was coming out of college. I think that shows really bright signs for in the unfortunate situation where Paolo and Franz are frequently injured.
No, absolutely. That's his scalability, that his scoring versatility, that the idea, like you said, like he has proven he can hit the catch and shoot three, he can attack the closeouts, he's hitting his floaters, he's developing a really nice handoff chemistry with Wendell Carter. Like clearly is thriving in the off ball cutter 3-point shooter role, especially now that it's a little more consistent. And anyone watching on video might have saw basically my brain break as I was looking at these box scores. I was like, he had a perfect game, and I knew he did. It was against Dallas, 7 of 7 field goals. I must have looked past it 15 times, but he scored 19 points, 7 of 7 from the field, 4 for 4 from three. That was and 3 steals to boot in that one over Cooper Flags. Mavericks that the Magic won as a part of this win streak. Some of his box scores in this stretch: 26 points, 4 steals, 2 blocks, 3 threes against the Wizards last night. 23 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, 1 block, and 3 threes against the Cavs the other night. He had 19 points on the perfect game. He had 19 points with 3 threes and 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block against the Pistons. That was a loss. But just in that stretch alone, since the month of March has started, he's played 7 games, and De Silva's averaging 16 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, 1.7 steals, hitting 49% of his threes on 5-3 a game, and 69% of his twos, 6 of them or 5 of them a game, and 89%, only 1 free throw game, but insanely efficient. So, to me, the big thing for De Silva, that to me, his inconsistencies that fans will criticize this season is more about his role and more about the role being inconsistent, and that's it. When he's given a consistent role, like in the early stretch, playing when Paolo was out and he was a part of the Magic's success playing around Franz pick and rolls, he fit right into that handoff system, catch and shoot threes, dribble, drive, attack. The ball moves smoothly, and most of the roster moves the ball a lot quicker in that system in general, save for Paolo. But Paolo brings so many other things, it doesn't really matter. And now they have combined forces, and we're seeing kind of the best versions of both. We'll see, how that could get even better with the return of Franz and AB when it actually is at full power. Because Magic fans got to remember, we've seen this team be top 10 rated on when Paolo was out. We've seen them top 10 rated when Franz was out. We still just haven't seen everyone together for a long stretch. This could still be a really great nucleus in that sense going forward for a long time. So there's really nothing to worry about in my eyes on that end. To me, some of this is growing pains. A lot of it's injuries and new pieces being moved around at once for the Magic. But it could also, you could easily talk yourself into it's better that they dealt with this now and now have a few different options of if we lose Franz or Paolo in a playoff series, we know we can rely on this lineup or these 4 sets that have now worked for 10, 20 game stretches. And it's not something they have to just figure out on the fly. Now they have experience doing it without their full cast. And that's kind of what everyone was asking for, was just kind of give us something that works when some of the stars are out. Don't make it shouldn't be a rock fight every time. And they, for some reason, every game is very competitive. I'm not sure what that says about the team other than generally kind of playing to their competition. They probably could stay consistent, that's probably what got them a lot this season, is just kind of getting away from what was working after a lead, like Javon Carter has called them out for doing, and maybe playing a little, he called it selfish, just taking more shots off the dribble and maybe hunting points and stats instead of just kind of sticking to the game plan, sticking to the system that works. And, now they're doing it. And they've beaten the Cavs in this stretch, a big marquee win against them. We'll see how it carries over. But I wanted to just shout out to Silva because I do think it's ready. He's now been so efficient that the Magic could look to scale him up even more and make him even more featured part of this offense, because he's flashed every ball skill you want running the offense anytime he gets the chance. So shout out to him. I think he's been a huge part of this stretch, especially with AB and Franz both out during a lot of this stretch. He's been the one that stepped up in their place, and obviously Paolo also doing a ton defensively. Wanted to highlight that too. Just he's guarding other teams' stars, other teams' best players during these last few stretches, and the Magic are back towards the top of the league on net rating, 5th since February 7th, and the best defense since February 7th as well in the league. So they're figuring it out with Paolo, and this time without Franz. But that, to me, it's just a good problem to have still at this point. I think people are overplaying a little bit of the issues, because it's not always pretty basketball at its worst, and now they're getting back to that point where it's let's let's rely on a few main sets that we know create good looks every time. Run the ball through the best players, through your best ball handlers, Paolo and Bane and Suggs, actions together that use both of them at once. And I think they're doing a lot more of that. They're hunting a lot more threes for Bane and Suggs like they needed to, and or I thought they needed to, and they, are finally healthy enough to do it. And just like they, Coach Mosley and Paulo both credited Paulo's shift to his mindset shift, and since the All Star snub, or not making at least the All Star break, roughly around that time, just a shift in mentality of what this team needs and how he can change his role and execute it. And he's been playing his superstar self ever since. So I know I just went on a little rant there, but that to me is all things that have added up to what is working for this Magic team. Just everyone kind of accepting their role a little bit. Javon Carter making a big splash. I that's on my side. What has anything else kind of jumped out to you about kind of what's working for this Magic team?
Yeah, I mean, we gave him a lot of, or not we, but a lot of people, media, gave him a lot of, heat when he was first started on the team. Desmond Bane, man, I mean, he's played every game this season for a team
Right.
that's had so many injuries. He's been the rock for this team, one of the foundational, pieces. I mean, I didn't even realize he's gotten his numbers up to 38.9, almost 39% from deep. And if you guys remember the beginning of the season, I mean, he was really low there. I believe the high 20s, low 30s was kind of what he was starting off, 20, 30 games into the season. So for him to get, this high up, almost back to 40% on the volume that he's been shooting, I want to definitely give, the shout out to him, because I feel like, with everything else, Tristan da Silva, Anthony Black, the injuries in and out of the lineup with Paolo and Franz, Jalen Suggs coming into the season, having to be hobbled and kind of coming back and working his way to a season high that he had last night. Desmond Bane's been the guy that's held down the position. He's been the rock for this team, and I definitely think he deserves a lot of the credit for this Orlando Magic team being in the fifth seed despite all the injuries they had. Because I believe, just like if last year, the year before, if these injuries would have happened to the point of that what they did this year, this team would not have been in the same position given the competition in the East, right? Potentially because of how it was last year, seeding was a little bit different, but the competition in the East has taken a little bit of a step up. Teams like Detroit coming, stepping up. The Celtics getting, Jalen or Jason Tatum back from Achilles injury after less than a year, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, the East is kind of stacked, and with Desmond Bane doing what he does, the Magic have still been able to not only stay competitive but stay out of the playoff or play in this far.
Yeah, I mean, Bane's improvement as the season goes on is insane. Like he's had, I think it was like 12 30-point games total and six in the last 12 games, or something absurd like that. Over his last 19 games, he's averaging 25 a game, 4 assists, 4 boards, 1.5 steals, hitting 64% on twos, 9 twos a game, 48% on threes, 6 threes a game, 90% on free throws, 5 free throws a game. So that, and 57 on field goals. So if you're looking for the 50-40-90 club, that is 58, 48, and 90. So cleared that club real easy. He's actually on track on the whole season to join like the 5 or 6 best scorers ever for the most efficient 20-point per game 50-40-90 club scoring season ever. Like only 6 guys like Bird, Steph, Durant type scorers have done it. There's a few others I'm forgetting. But just to point out, like where he was in the beginning, like you said, and a combination of things, like they weren't necessarily, whether they asked him or not, he wasn't taking as many threes as this offense probably needed. Personally, I think he was just kind of adjusting to a new team that was working, trying to fit in and find his role, and find kind of play the veteran point guard that can pick his spots. And at some point, it has clicked that like his spot is anytime he's remotely open for three. Like that is what this team needs from him. They don't need the pass first decision maker as much as like the quick trigger sniper that also can make good decisions and drive off of that. And like his driving is really underrated. Like we're already at the point where like I have to correct myself every time I only talk about his shooting. Like Steph Curry's the best shooter ever. Like he's also maybe the best scorer ever. Like Desmond Bane is also one of the best scorers in the league. Like his driving and downhill ability is absurd, and a lot of that is off the 3-point shooting. But like he's had multiple 30-point games, including um, the one 2 nights ago where he only made 2 threes. Like he had 10 2-pointers in that one, 9 free throws in that one, and it's because he threatens that three. But the best version of this Magic offense is Bane curling around handoffs and screens, threatening that three on the catch, driving. If it's not there, he has the roller or a dunker spot to throw a lob or a dump off to, normally Wendell or Mo Wagner. He always hits or draws bump and finish contacts now, or he seems to be hunting that more and more as the season goes on. He was working with Tate Carter at some point, one of the Magic assistant coaches. That was, funny enough, a key to victory in one of these Heat matchups where Bane went off for 37 points, where he did it. He hit 6 threes, but he also had like 13 points off bump and finish, I think 13 or 17, but off bump and finish layups. And I asked him about it after the game, and he said it himself that he worked with what I was just talking about, assistant coach Tate Carter, on the bump and finishes. He was working on that type of like the mindset of hunting contact, looking to strike first to make the refs force a call and then finish. And he was on point that night, and he's pretty much been doing it ever since. Like I think he's finding where he's best served to attack within this offense and for this team. And there was another clear emphasis as well at some point when he first took 10 threes a game, his first time, 47 games into the season, January 30th, against the Raptors. He took 10 threes. He made 7 of them, 32 points. And I kind of asked him and coach about it. And the general goal was, yeah, we need to get back to the 10 threes a game like he was shooting in Memphis. That's the volume that he was best at, that he was still efficient at, that he's been shooting for years, and that this team kind of like probably expected when they were getting him, but then they have to realize, how do we create those threes the best ways? And is that from running everything with the ball in his hands? Maybe it's just as much that as running everything with him spotting up and Suggs and Banchero and Franz kicking out to him for a wide open catch and shoot three, and then letting him attack closeouts and doing that. And I think the Magic are just finally finding that rhythm of both, of doing both of those, running offense through Bane, through Suggs, through Paolo. And, Paolo is finding his best scoring, finding incredible efficiency as the season goes on too. Like, he's had the big mindset shift. It's his most efficient scoring season ever by true shooting percentage, especially true in the last 30 games. He's doing it by accepting more of this off-ball movement energy role. He gets offensive rebounds. He runs the floor for early steals and transition. He gets the post-up mismatches. He's short rolling off pick and roll and then flipping it. And the guards are setting the picks, and they're popping off inverted pick and pops. And, they're really finding a good rhythm with that kind of balance of using everyone's strength at once to try to bend the floor multiple ways at once. And it's working with this streak. And now we're going to see both these teams come to a head Saturday night with the Sunshine State rivalry on the line. Very excited for it. Let's round out the pod looking ahead with the playoff picture. Thoughts on kind of where these teams go the rest of the way this season. I think that both teams, well, like the Heat also had pretty high expectations of like championship talk before the season, and they always think of themselves that way. Has anything changed in the way they view this season? And because sometimes the rhetoric can change to just like we just need some playoff experience. And honestly, I think that's all the Magic really need is one playoff series win to be like, okay, we're a real playoff team. And who knows, if they get hot at the right time, this East is competitive but still pretty wide open.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody else has called it the Sunrail series, but the Sunrail series
Oh,
kind of
that's
works,
nice.
from
Oh,
Miami to Orlando here, that one.
that's good because you got the Subway Series in New York, and that's probably better and less of a mouthful than mine. So I might work that into an edit one of these days. We'll see. I'll give you a shout if I did.
Yeah, Born in Queens, so I heard that one a lot growing up for sure. But yeah, I mean, as far as the outlooks for the Heat, see, the thing about the Miami Heat is they make it into the playoffs. You still have a shot, right? This is a team that, you really can't ever count out, especially this season with the, emergence of Norman Powell. I mean, if you go into the playoffs with a healthy Norm Powell, Tyler Hero there, Davion Mitchell, Bam Adebayo, Jaime Jaquez Jr., a couple of those young guys, Larson, Yakuchonis, Ware. I mean, you have a good recipe there to be able to make some runs and make some games competitive. And I think, for the Miami Heat, that's really been their calling card, after the iteration of the Big Three Heat, right? Was making games dirty. And obviously, when you have Jimmy Butler, it's a little bit different, but just making games tough, making it competitive to where, you're able to squeeze out enough wins at the end of it. So I think for the Miami Heat, they might have still that expectation for themselves. I think talent wise, the West is probably a little more of a, threat for, once if you are able to make it out of the East somehow. I'm looking at teams like the Celtics and the Knicks. Those are teams that, really are to me the bigger threats in the East Coast. Detroit, I feel like as good as they are, still have to prove themselves in the playoffs, as many young teams having their first one seed season do. We saw it a couple of years ago from the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? They had the one seed after, making some acquisitions, and they weren't able to go too deep. So I'm, curious to see how far the Pistons goes. I think when it comes to, the actual two threats in the East, I'm looking at the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks, and obviously, the Cavaliers with the addition what they, recently got. They've been, winning some games a little more lately. But I'm curious to see for the Miami Heat. Personally, I don't think they're championship or they have um, goals of being champions. As a fan, I don't see it. I'm not setting any type of expectations. I think it's a team with Coach Bo, Pat Riley, and the roster they have. They're always going to see themselves as competitive. So I think for them, it's any game is any game for the Miami Heat. Especially come playoff time. If they can make it dirty, they can make it gritty. They can, outgrind you to the end of the game. I mean, we've seen it happen against more talented Boston teams, way more talented Milwaukee teams at the time. And if it wasn't for a potential injury for Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo, they might have won. In the bubble, right? So it's you can't ever always count the Heat out. Now for the Orlando Magic, I think that really is tentative on how healthy you are going into the playoffs. Because if you have Anthony Black and you have Franz there, I mean, you have a full roster and then some, right? You have one of the best guard rotations in the league with two. I mean, Anthony Black has just emerged this season the way he has. So you add him on top of Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane, and that's not only an offensive, but defensively, that's one of the best, three-man guard combos you can kind of run out there. And then you just mentioned the wing scoring of, Franz, Paolo, and then you add on who's been shining lately, Tristan de Silva. The Magic have a really good squad from top to bottom. They just have to be able to put it all together and hope they can get healthy in time for the playoffs. But I'm thinking for both the teams, one thing you mentioned a little earlier, they're usually passing each other, one going down, one going up. I mean, I can see, a potential series or a potential way where, the Magic beat the Cleveland. Maybe if they get that matchup again, they overcome it this time and the Heat beat the Knicks. I mean, I could really see that happening where both teams potentially could make it to the second round of the playoffs. So I think this is just as a fan of basketball being in Florida, it's a good time.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, these the playoffs seem open. Like you did mention that the East is, I think, more competitive than fans realize this year. Like the team's quality in the East, but it does feel wide open. Tatum is back for the Celtics. We'll see how he looks by playoff time, but they're still as competitive as ever. But you hit on the Heat's talent, and they do have like the individual scores that can pop off in a random game, and having multiple ones making it hard to guard all of them. So like any of them could pop off over a series around the consistency that Bam brings on both ends and the defense brings on both ends. And to the Heat's credit, to give them a chance here, I just checked the point differential, and on the season, even with all the ups and downs, they're still ninth in point differential, which is fifth best in the East, 13th overall on offense, and fourth overall on defense. And if you're top 12 on both sides, that's contender level basketball in my book, and they're right there. So that's and along with the like top 5 defensive culture. So like the thing that really does give them a chance is we've just seen them do it in the era of parity. We just saw them make the finals as an 8 seed. You mentioned some of the injuries, but like it's from that defensive culture and Bam kind of being a big part of the staple of all that to me. The individual star talent, Bam is probably right up there with anyone, especially now in terms of consideration, but up there with anyone ahead of him. It's not like Giannis and Tatum are even playing, or Embiid is even like really a big factor right now in all this. Um, like there's just not. I mean, obviously the Cade is having an MVP type season, and D Mitch has played amazing as well. But like, there's not like a clear superstar other than say for Cade ahead of him. So long story short, like they could have the best player in any series. They could have 3 20-point scores if you do have Hero back. You have the 3-point shooting on their side and the ISO unpredictability, the screenless offense if they return to primarily doing that as well. So I think I'm with you that they could definitely sneak up on somebody like the Knicks, who seem to be a little, muddy, disappointed by their own standards of where they thought they would be with everything. And the Celtics missing everybody. The Pistons have been great. We'll see. Like you do have to prove it a little bit more in the playoffs, but man, they're a machine with Cade again this year. Um, but yeah, I do think Miami has an outside shot for all those reasons to, at least make the finals just as much as any other team here. The Magic, you know, a week or two ago, I would not have believed in a late playoff run. The more they played like this, I mean, I'm definitely buying a little bit more upside in the just because of how open the East is and how up they get for these matchups. They've already played the Cavs and the Celtics once in the playoffs apiece, so you have a little bit of experience there now. That's exactly what you need to get over the hump if you see one more time, especially if they're a little hobbled there, or maybe the James Harden factor is too new. Maybe Tatum's not quite healthy enough to be the positive impact, superstar impact they need. Who knows? But that being said, Harden has been incredible for Cleveland. I do think, like, if I was gonna pick a team, like that's probably the one that scares me because of that dynamic. Like he's like just insane to have 2 like Hall of Fame level guards now with D Mitch and Harden at the same time. Can score, can play, make any decision for your offense, and elevate your play finishers all around them. I think it naturally puts like Harden in a playmaking role and Mitchell more as a scorer, and alleviates some of the creation for Mobley and lets him focus on defense and play finishing, and just really helps for them. So that's the kind of the team that really scares me the most. And also, the Pistons have been good, but like you said, they got to prove it a little bit. They got to prove it. But they have been pretty stellar with Cades, and just Duren as well. Finding his groove, all-star this year, making a leap, and Asar Thompson's incredible defense. So they're definitely a tough out, and that seems to be across the board for these East teams. There's a lot of top defenses, the Raptors as well. I think at least on the Magic side of things, I think they'd be pretty happy with getting out of here with a playoff series win after this season. I think flaming out in the play-in would be pretty disappointing. Losing in a playoff series early, would kind of be expected based on the ups and downs, but I don't think, I think it would still be a little bit disappointing because, this team is rallying as of late, and they have the camaraderie and chemistry. It's not like it goes away when the team loses and it's only there when they win. It's just, the vibes around everything are probably a little better in that sense. And I think everyone just kind of buys the bigger picture a lot more when things are working. And you can really see it when the team is clicking on both ends, and you got to have your best players out there to do that. And the Magic finally are pretty healthy to be able to do that. And that to me is the biggest thing as of late. Having healthy Suggs, who's been arguably a top 30, top 50 player by the impact numbers this year. I think he's been as important as anyone, along with the star, scoring production of Bane and Banchero. And, De Silva's scalability, as we mentioned before. Wendell Carter's versatility has been really huge. His switchability and his clutchness. He's actually the clutchest player on the Magic this year in terms of the numbers. He's like 6 of 9 or 7 of 10 or something, where he's throwing down game-winning slams and having his own big moments. So cool to see Wendell do that as well. But in terms of this matchup, I think Paolo getting downhill is really the important thing to me. How the Magic use him, if they can continue to use him the way they've been doing it, and get him moving downhill and kind of take Bam out of the mix a little bit, I think that'll be a pretty big factor. Is just kind of keep Bam moving and not necessarily directly in your action that you're trying to score against. Um, Seems like one pretty big key, but also crashing the glass in general. Sounds cliche, but it worked for him once, so I think that's a big one. Especially with the Magic just having kind of a mismatch, I think, on the boards a little bit size wise against this team, I think is something that reveals itself. So use that size, play through the stars, keep creating good looks for your best players. Seems like some pretty big keys here for Magic Heat. Let's go on the spot. Who wins a playoff matchup? Magic Heat. If we somehow got one, maybe it's just a play-in game is where that might be more likely at this point. But who wins it over a series if we got Magic Heat? Who you taking?
Fully healthy.
Just based on this season, whatever you would expect. Like, let's say Franz is out. Maybe a half hurt AB is coming back into play, and the Heat have everybody.
I would have to lean, with the Heat in the playoff setting. Especially with Eric Spoelstra and his ability to strategize from game to game, switch things up, figure out what's working, what's not working in a matchup. And it's really it's close on the talent, and Jamal Mosley also a phenomenal coach as well. But I would just give, because of it being a playoff series, I would give Coach Spo a little more of an edge just because of his ability to play chess when it comes to the coaching and switching up his matchup, switching up his defensive scheme, switching up what he's doing offensively. I feel like you have just enough with the Heat and his level of coaching to get a playoff win. So. Obviously, I got red and black behind me, so it's pretty obvious I'm a little biased. So, but yeah, I do think I would lean in a playoff series towards the Miami Heat.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. See, the Magic have beaten the Heat 4 times this year, man. I got to go with the Magic. They're taking them in a series. They're figuring things out.
The Celtics beat the Heat all 4 times in the Big Three that one year, and then they didn't win the game in the playoffs.
Didn't matter. Didn't matter, did it? Man. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Jonathan, for taking the time today. It's been fun talking some hoops. A little Magic Heat update for everybody. Shout out Bam one more time, man. 83 points. Just one of the greatest performances in basketball history. And, we're alive to see it. It's in our era. It's happening right now. We should all enjoy it and be excited for anytime records get broken. That's what sports is all about, especially for athletes chasing greatness. That's like, as big of a goal as it gets is setting an all-time record like that. So shout out Bam, celebrate him, and yeah, man, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me, and you said if I want to plug some stuff, anything, I got some Island fights coming up, so make sure you guys follow the social media. Island fights, got some fights in Alabama coming up, some fights out in Biloxi, Mississippi, Pensacola. So if you're in Florida, want to watch some free fights, we're on YouTube, so make sure you guys check us out as well.
And to be clear, you're not in the fights, but you're covering the fights.
Correct. Coverage, a little bit of commentary.
We got to let them know what they're tuning into.
Yeah, so I'm doing the social media. I'm the guy behind the camera, sometimes behind the mic as well, doing that. But yeah, I won't be fighting yet. To be continued on that one, though.
Oh, what a tease! Find out next time. You got to tune in to find out if John's in the ring. But catch him at Johnathan_MMA. Follow his work at 5 Reasons Sports and on SI covering all the NBA teams. But thanks a lot, man. It's been fun. Always fun talking hoop. I have to do it again. See you soon. And one last congrats to you and your fiance on the huge life moves. Happy for y'all. had to squeeze that in here before we get out of here. So just, happy for you guys, and congrats, man.
No, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you having me on. Appreciate the kind words. Even when we linked up at the Magic game before I actually popped the question, you were super, super supportive, man. So definitely appreciate you having me on, and I can't wait to do this again for sure.
You know it, man. Excited for y'all. Thanks for being a part of it. Have a good one.
You too, man.
Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.